All right, so come on to all fours first, but I promise we're not going to stay here long. So just spreading out your fingers, making sure you stack your shoulders, elbows, wrists, and then your knees underneath your hips. And then take a breath in, and as you exhale, let your back move up toward the ceiling, your tail move down to the floor, head tucks all the way in. And then just pause to really make sure you've exhaled every last drop. And then inhale as you send the tail towards the ceiling, abdominals, ribs towards the floor, and bring the gaze up. So just 2 more times. When you get to a point that you're looking back through your knees, just make sure you have the same view of each foot and each leg, just in case there's some little talking going on through the knee that means one foot is coming across to the other or winging out to the side. And so when you inhale and come out of this one and you're looking up and forward, stay there and tuck all 10 toes under. And then just a little backward and forward motion. It's a really fast way to get a little bit of stretch into the feet and a little bit of stretch into the hands and the wrists. And then can you just circle your body 3 times one way, which is a fast way to get some stretch into your hips and shoulders. And then 3 times the other way. It's always good to just pick a movement where you get a ton of bits stretched and moved all in one go. And then let that release. So from here, I want you to come onto your right side. Or no, it doesn't matter out your right side. That's just an ingrained habit. Come on a side and extend both legs out. Okay, so once you're there, remember the importance of the underneath side of you. I'm not going to keep cueing it, but I want you just to make sure that top leg really lengthens out. And then bring the top leg up to hip height, keeping the reach out, bring the bottom leg up and lower it down. So I want you to hold that thought that you're trying to squeeze something between the 2 inner thighs. So it's not that I'm looking for the feet to join, but really this almost, can you create this pretend situation where the top leg and the bottom leg put a little bit of squeeze on something. One more time. Now take the 2 legs, keep them suspended in the air. Take the top leg a little bit higher, just an inch or so, and now make it a little bit longer. Circle the underneath leg and see if you can get that sense of trying to pull it up toward the top leg. Doesn't need to be big, but I do want you to try and make sure that the leg goes to the back of the circle and then reverse for me. So it's kind of easy and very common to see people just creating a circle near the front edge of the mat and going nowhere near the back edge. And then close the 2 legs down. And from here, swing the legs forward to the front corner of the mat. Bend that top knee and set the sole of the foot on the inside of the ankle. And then just slide the leg up somewhere comfortable. The only place I wouldn't rest is on the side of the knee. I'd go below or above, whatever feels good for you. Let the knees close just a little bit down toward the floor and then open. So you're just letting that thigh bone find a little bit of a turn in and a little bit of a turn out. It doesn't need to be major. You don't need to create so much movement your foot is slip sliding. But now what I want you to do is put your hand on your pelvis and make sure your pelvis is not joining in, that you're really getting your thigh bone to move in that hip joint. Okay, now pause in a middle ground between falling to the floor and trying to reach back behind you, and hook your foot off the bottom leg, keeping your knee bent. Now I want you to pull the knee towards your shoulder, circle it down so it's sitting parallel with the floor, reach the knee forward towards the standing foot, bring it back behind you, and then rotate it out to bring it back to where we started. So it comes into your shoulder, parallel to the floor, down towards the standing foot, comes back behind you, and then does a full 160 rotation to come back to the ceiling. One more this way. Throughout that, you're trying to make sure that your pelvis stays really still. When you're back to the ceiling, can you reverse that? Take the leg back behind you. Now the 160 is going to be that turning down toward the floor, pulling up towards your shoulder, and then rotating back out. Moving it down towards your foot, forward toward the floor, your shoulder, back up, and one more time. And back up. Great. Then from here, step the leg down behind you. So the foot is only just below this bottom leg. Then roll the top hip forward because you want to try and keep one side of the pelvis stacked on the other. And now the bottom leg lifts and lowers. When it lifts and lowers, see if you can feel what the baby toe side of your foot is doing. So notice if it's trying to curl away from the floor and look up toward the ceiling. See if you can really push out into the heel. Last one. And let it release. Okay, tumble over to the other side. Start with both legs out to long. So the feet are stacked one on top of the other. Okay, then bring the top leg to hip height. Lengthen it out. You want to feel the underneath side of your waist kick in. And then bring the bottom leg up and lower it down. Bring it up and lower it down. And remember, we're not thinking foot to foot, not even necessarily inner thigh to inner thigh. If you're really creating that idea that both legs are trying to squeeze in, then they wouldn't be meeting because there'd be something in between them. One more. And then keep both legs suspended. Take the top leg an inch higher and a little bit longer. Now circle the underneath leg. See if you can find that back part of the circle where you're really reaching toward the back edge of the mat. Now reverse it. Okay, last one. Good job. Now swing both legs forward, bend the top knee, bring the sole of the foot up onto the ankle, and then slide the leg up wherever is comfortable for you. Just a reminder, don't settle it on your knee. Above or below is great. And then let the knee fall a little in, a little out. Again, doesn't need to be major. We're just getting the thigh bone to move around the hip socket. So if you have had to be sitting in a chair this morning, we're just going to let the hip joint find a slightly different experience to being bent only in one position. Okay, now hold there. Pick the foot up off the floor, off the leg rather. Bring your knee to your shoulder. Tip it forward so the leg is parallel to the mat beneath you. Circle it down towards your standing foot and then turn it out behind you to bring it up and in. Circle it down, take it down and back, and then rotate it up. Okay, now really monitor your pelvis because I can see on screen when the leg is coming behind, there's a few of you that are rolling the pelvis back to take the leg behind you, which is kind of like 0 plus 0 equals 0. If the pelvis comes, we're not moving in the hip joint. Then reverse the direction of travel. So going down towards your foot, turning out behind you, pulling up towards your shoulder, and then turning in. Okay, one more time. And then let the legs release completely. Leslie, if you go onto your back and take one leg up and out to the side so that you're stretching your inner thighs while we flip over onto our front to do it. Okay, so when you come onto your stomach, doesn't matter which leg you want to do first. Now, it depends on the mat you're on. I find it easier to get right up to the edge of the mat so that the leg I'm going to work on can pull up alongside me on a not so sticky floor. So it's entirely up to you, depending on the surface you're working on. So your head is going to go down. You're going to try and bring that thigh as close to a 90-degree angle. That's better, Sarah. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, and then rest your head down. So on that leg that has the bent knee, can you feel how that hip bone or front pelvic bone and the hip socket are nowhere near the floor? So I want you to play with trying to roll the pelvis down as if you could get that to the floor. There's also a high chance that your pelvis is hiked up towards your rib cage on this side. So make sure you really pull that down and away from your ribs. That's the most common adjustment that I have to make in class, is that the pelvis has just moved upward and there's almost no waist left. Then if you want to deepen into this, extend the leg out to straight to the side. And then you can usually feel on yourself how you're resting on the big toe side of your foot. So can you rotate that thigh bone out, trying to point your toes toward the ceiling? And then as soon as you do that, you can feel how your pelvis just went 95 foot off the floor. So then you try to turn the pelvis down, and it's always going to be just constantly playing with trying to turn the thigh bone one way and the hip bone down the other way. And Leslie, your version of that when you're lying on your back with the leg out to the side is to rotate it in and to rotate it out, so that that whole expanse of inner thigh muscles gets their stretch from one side. And you need to make sure the other side is really doing its best to anchor back down onto the floor. Okay, so to come out of it, bend the knee, slide the leg out to straight, and then flip over to the other side. Okay, so just make sure that when you bend the knee, it's on a surface where you can slide it up to you pretty easily. You're looking really for this 90-degree angle from the body. And then rest your head down. And on that bent knee side, you guys are trying to get your hip bone or the pelvis down toward the floor. Leslie, yours is the reverse. On your back, you're trying to get the standing side to sit back. You're trying to really sit back into that bum cheek. So if you feel like the stretch is intense enough, just trying to twist the pelvis back down, that's where you'll stay. If you feel like you can take more, you extend the leg out to straight. And then from here is where you want to play with rotating the leg outward so that we really get deep into the inner thighs. But at the same time, you're thinking of turning the pelvis downward. And then that usually will find some conversation somewhere with something, whether you want that conversation or not. And then bend the knee to come out of it. Okay, hop back up onto all fours. Okay, so a movement that I've been working on, because that standing on one leg really made me realize how much weaker one side of my pelvis is than the other. So I thought I would share this work in progress with you guys too, because it might be helpful. So tuck and untuck the pelvis, because what I really don't want you to do is to have your bum tucked down and under and then try to work into the side of your thigh and the side of your pelvis. So find that motion where you're sending your tailbone to the ceiling. You can feel that curve of the low back coming into play, but then pull up the front rib cage. Then we have the abdominal wall connected. And now you can just pick a leg and open the knee to the side.
You've got trouble with the mic, Gail.
Oh, have I lost you? Can you hear me now, Jan? No? Have I gone completely? Oh, I don't know if it's
clearly.
just...
We can hear you.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
we can hear.
Did you lose me at all?
Yeah, I lost intermittently.
Oh, I think it might be
No.
just, yeah, I think it's just you, Jan, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Because the mic's on full charge and everybody else is waving that they can hear me.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
the
I can hear
internet
you now. It's when you're laying down, I couldn't.
Okay, all right. So when you're there, tail untucked, ribs pull up, you know how to take care of your upper body. Now, when you lift your knee to the side, I want you to really pay attention that you don't do this and twist the pelvis over to one side. So the leg only comes where you can try and keep relatively level, and then it comes back in. Because this is why we've just done a ton of inner thigh work, is as you bring the leg out to the side, it's a big stretch for the inner thighs and a lot of work for the outer thighs. And you can keep alternating legs. I'm good with that. But if you can imagine that you've got something balanced on the back of the pelvis and you're really trying not to use that to lift the leg. So for a lot of people, because we tend to stand quite narrow with the feet quite close together or sit that way, the inner thighs hold a lot of tension and it's not balanced out by strength in the outside of the thigh. And this is a great movement for resetting that balance, getting your derrière to fire up. And legs are really heavy, so it takes a lot of manpower to get those things to lift out to the side. And of course, the more energy you use, the better it is. Okay, one more each way. Good. All right, walk the hands in and come right on up on your knees. Oh, look at that. The sun is shining on me. I must have done the right thing. So the knees are hip width apart. And now you're going to weight shift over onto one knee. I'll turn to face the camera in a minute. And you're going to see if you can just pull one knee, one shin, one foot up off the floor, hold the balance for a moment and bring it back down. Come back this way. So you're going to weight shift over. See if you can lift the knee, the shin, no, and hold the balance before you come down. Sadly, that's meant to be the stronger hip. Maybe I've worked too much on my right side now, and now I've got to balance it out, work on my left side. So it doesn't seem like that much of an exercise, but it requires a fair degree of control of your waist muscles. So you definitely want to just check in that there's no subtle rib thrust to try and pick the leg up. Try and make sure you really keep your ribs down in line with your pelvis to pick the knee up and hold it. And it only needs to be a few seconds. Okay, so there's definitely a weight shift over to pull the leg up without a shadow of a doubt. However, I want you to try and avoid, and I can see a little bit on the screen, this happening where there's kind of that side bend that pulls the knee off. You're going back to this thought of trying to pull the pelvis up. I can't do this and talk. Pull the pelvis up to pull the knee up, rather than if you just keep side bending, you can do it wrong and you can feel it. If you just really side bend, you can feel how the weight goes out of the knee and it's not such a hoo-ha to lift it up. I don't want you to do that because that would be nice and easy. I want you to see whether you can weight shift, but keep this sense of trying to stay relatively upright to bring the leg up and off, because it demands quite a bit from the standing hip and pelvis besides your waist to be able to do that. I'm really going to have to work on my left side. I've obviously done far too much work on my right side this week. Whoa. Okay, one more. And then come and lie on your back. And when you lie on your back, stand your feet to the outside edges of your mat. And if you're not using a mat, just take the feet way wider than your pelvis. Point your feet so they're like in a 10-2 position with your knees following along. And then let both knees go to the right. And then just let them hang out there for a moment. Now, if your right knee is really uncomfortable, suspended in space, feel free to hop up and just grab a pillow and put it underneath there. On the left leg, I want you to think of the thigh bone reaching forward and away. So almost like I had my hands around that bone and was trying to pull it out of your hip socket. Now, can you think of pressing the left knee down toward the floor, wherever you can take it to, and then letting it come back to where its natural resting place was. Press it down toward the floor and let it come back. So a couple more times, pressing down, releasing away. And be careful if your knee is talking to you, because you may be pushing more through your knee and less rotating in from your hip joint. Then let the legs come back to center. Let them go over to the left. And again, now, if your left knee is very high away from the floor and it's uncomfortable, put something underneath it to support it. Then send your right thigh knee away from you, traction it out, and then start to press the inside of that right thigh toward the floor and back up. And it's really the hip socket that I want you to focus on, that you're trying to get this sense of letting the thigh bone rotate internally, although the knee is kind of the place that's going to tell you how far down you get it and back up. One more time. And then come back and stand on both feet with your knees pointing out over your toes. And then bring yourself up into shoulder bridge. So rolling the pelvis back and then peeling the spine up and off the floor. So once you're up in bridge, all the alignment points apply. I don't want you to shove up in your lower back. So although you're pressing the hip sockets up, you're trying to make sure your rib cage doesn't sit proud of your pelvis. Then from here, lift both heels off the floor and let them come down. Come up on the balls of your feet, so it's not a tiptoe exercise. You're really trying to stand across the width of the forefoot. Last two. Last one. And then slowly roll the spine all the way down. And then go again, tuck the pelvis, roll the spine up. Okay, and then pull the toes back so you're resting on your heels and stamp your feet down. And pull the toes back and feet go down. That's it. Foot up onto your heels and down, last two. But I really want you to pull up, pull up, pull up. Don't give the ankle an easy ride. And then slowly roll the whole kit and caboodle back and down. Okay, once you have that, walk the knees and feet in and now cross your right thigh over your left thigh. So that right leg is just dangling down. Okay, see if you can nudge your right foot so that instead of it sitting in the center line of your body, your left foot, you're trying to sit the foot in line with the middle of the left bum cheek. It's going to feel like you should really have it in the middle of your body. I want you to have it in line with the center of the pelvis to begin with. And then go ahead and bridge up here. All the same alignment points. You are definitely trying to get the pelvis up, but you're also trying not to thrust into your back. Now bring both arms up to the ceiling, interlace your fingers, take your arms overhead wherever's comfortable for you, and then pull the right arm a little over to the left. And now start to roll down from the top of your spine to the bottom. When you've landed, bring the arms back to center and back down by your side. And now step your left foot more to the center line of your body. So if you could split yourself in half, your foot would be standing on that line. And then go again, roll the pelvis up. Hold at the top, bring the arms up, interlace the fingers, reach the arms overhead, and then just pull that left arm a little, sorry, left and right, pull that right arm a little to the left, and then start to roll down. Just purely because a lot of the work that you've been doing on the push-ups, the big lat muscles in your back have been busy this week. This is a nice way just to give them a little bit of stretch. And then let it release and come down. So uncross, cross your left thigh over your right, make sure I get it right this time, and put your right heel in line with the center of your right bum cheek. Then once you have that, roll the pelvis back and up. And then standing at the top, bring the arms up, interlace the fingers. And now pull your left arm a little over to the right. Doesn't need to be major. You don't need to banana your body at all. And then exhale as you roll down. Just by virtue of the fact we have that left arm reaching up and overhead will be enough to lengthen out this left side. When you land, release the arms and then nudge your right foot in. See if you can picture where the center line of your body would be and put your foot right up against it. Then go again, roll the spine up. Take the arms up and over, clasp your fingers, and then take the arms, give them a little bit of a pull to the right, and then exhale, roll down everything in between. And when you've landed, let the arms release completely and uncross the legs for me. Okay, so hug your knees into your chest and rock up to sitting. From sitting, turn onto all fours. And we're going to find our way up to standing. So just very briefly, make sure your elbow creases forward, starfish your hands. Shoulders draw down your back, and then all 10 toes tuck underneath you. Lift your tailbone up and away, and then walk your hands back towards your feet and roll yourself all the way up toward the top. When you come to the top, step to one side of your mat, or if you're not working on a mat, maybe just put a cushion or a pillow on the floor. So from here, just to kind of build into everything we've done, bring one leg up and step it over your mat and land onto that foot. And then see if you can weight shift back to the waiting leg and pull that leg up and over. So standing on one leg and then stretching the leg out and over to land, and then seeing if the other leg is strong enough to pull the leg back to you. Okay, 2 more times, up and over, and then back and home. Good, and then to change, just turn, face the other way. Was like a nice easy change. And then same thing, pick the leg up, step over, and step back. So we get that balance of inner thigh and outer thigh having to work to pull you up and over. Last one here. And then once you're back on 2 legs, stand center and cross one leg over the other. So crossing at the ankle, both feet trying to point straight ahead. Whichever leg you crossed in front, bring that arm up toward the ceiling and side bend over towards the hanging arm. Now let the hip that belongs to the crossed over leg push out to the side. Hold there and let the bottom hand come up and come down. Lift up and come down. One last load for the hip. Last one here. And then upright and let it come down. Change the legs over, so cross left leg over right. Once you have that, take up the arm that belongs to the front leg, push the hip out to the side, and then hold there as the bottom arm lifts and lowers. Try to make sure neither knee is bent. Good. One last one. And then keep both arms at the top, interlace the fingers, step the feet back to a hip width apart. Inhale as you stretch all the way up, and then exhale, let the hands come down by your side. And then you're done.